When we talk about demand planning and S&OP, one question that people often ask is, should my S&OP plan be constrained or unconstrained? In other words, should it be what I think the market is or what I think we can deliver? Well, the answer is you need both. Let's start with understanding what unconstrained demand is. This is your customer's view of the world. They don't care what you can deliver. They want what they want, and they want it when they want it. Think of it this way. It is the orders that sales think that they can take if they didn't have to account for the nitpicky things like capacity and lead time. Now, compare that to constrained demand. This is what your business can realistically deliver. It takes into account your actual supply, available resources, and production capacity. In other words, it's the view of what's achievable given the limits of your operation. A good demand plan needs both. A good way to think about this is as follows. If demand is water running into a bucket from a tap and supply is a spigot at the bottom of the bucket, it's emptying the water out. And both the tap and the spigot allow the same amount of water to flow through. The water would simply go in and out of the bucket. This would be unconstrained flow. Now, imagine the spigot at the bottom of the bucket is smaller than the tap at the top. It doesn't allow as much water through. The water will keep pouring into the bucket at the same rate, but it can't flow through. What happens? Well, eventually the bucket will overflow. So what do we do about that? Well, if we think in terms of our constraint, which is the size of the spigot, the natural thing to do is partially close the tap. Control the inflow to match the outflow. This is what happens if we only allow our S&OP process to look at the constrained demand. We project our demand based on our constraints. We end up struggling to grow the business. We're making decisions based on our current capability. Instead of increasing the size of the spigot, we end up turning down the tap. How do you make this work, though, in S&OP? Well, first, you need a way to see both incoming orders and outgoing shipments, your inflow and your outflow. This means a demand plan that includes both bookings and shipments. Secondly, you need to have visibility of what's in your bucket. These are the orders that are waiting to be shipped. This is your backlog. Sales should have accountability for the bookings or the order inflow. They should be measured against their bookings forecast and should be developing that forecast based on what they think they can sell, the unconstrained demand. How wide open is that tap? This should be translated into an unconstrained shipment plan. That then becomes the input to operations and supply chain to develop a supply plan. Operations then needs to figure out what can be supplied, either from production or from inventory. This becomes our constrained shipment plan. They are looking at the spigot and determining how far open can it be. Constraining should only happen to the shipment plan. Bookings should be left at the unconstrained plan. The difference between the two will end up in your backlog, or in my analogy, it will end up filling up the bucket. Management's decision, which should be an obvious outcome of the S&OP process, is how to manage that constraint. Do we close down the tap or constrain demand? Do we get a bigger bucket, which increases lead times? Or do we get a bigger spigot, increase our capacity? The difference between the constrained and unconstrained shipment plan represents the opportunity cost of not addressing your constraints. A valuable thing to understand. Unconstrained demand gives you visibility into what we believe the market should be. It shows you what the customer actually needs or wants. Constrained demand keeps your plan grounded in operational reality. When you put the two side by side, you create a clear basis for decision making. This distinction between constrained and unconstrained plays a critical role in S&OP. Demand planning provides the foundation. It creates the realistic picture of demand, both unconstrained and constrained. Then, in the S&OP process, executives use that picture to make the trade-offs, setting priorities, aligning resources, and making decisions that connect strategy to execution. Here's the key point. The goal of demand planning isn't to produce a perfect forecast. Forecast accuracy is always going to have its limits. After all, the first rule of forecasting is that they're always wrong. So instead of that, the goal is to provide the most reliable and transparent view of demand and then link that to supply. That way, leaders have the clarity they need to set direction. Having a view of both constrained and unconstrained demand is a big part of providing that clarity. At DBM, we use the S&OP process to help clients align both the unconstrained and constrained views of their business. This ensures every department understands the plan, knows who's accountable, and can make informed strategic decisions. You can learn more about how S&OP supports demand planning and how to get S&OP clarity at dbmsys.com. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching today's video. Subscribe to our channel for more on implementing S&OP. You can learn more about how DBM can take your process to the next level by visiting our website, www.dbmsys.com. Thank you and take care.